friends! This is Claire from the Tulsa Zoo Education Department, and I'm here with you to do an amazing sloth and rainforest video. So, in the next 20 minutes, we're going to be diving deep into the structure of the rainforest. We're going to be learning about the sloths that live there, and we're also going to be meeting some animal ambassadors from the Tulsa Zoo. So strap in as we dive into the rainforest. Now, rainforest is a pretty easy term. It is a forest that gets quite a bit of rain. But did you know because of all this rain and lush plants that scientists believe it has the most biodiversity? Biodiversity is a pretty easy term to remember. Bio meaning life and diversity meaning diverse, different kinds. So we can figure out by those two parts of that word that there is a lot of different species that live in this area. Different plant species and animal species. Scientists believe 80% of terrestrial or land animals live in the rainforest. Now what's even crazier is that only 6% of the world is rainforest. That's a lot of diversity in a small area. So we learned just about how many animals live there, but did you know that there's different types of rainforests as well? There are two types, the temperate rainforest and the tropical rainforest. Now, temperate usually is not thought of first when we talk about rainforests. These are cooler areas. They have a cooler climate, but they still get a large amount of rain, and they are also quite humid. But these forests are typically found northern Pacific. So they're going to be found usually up in the North American coast, and they're going to be getting a lot of that sea air coming in. Now we're going to be moving on to the main event, tropical rainforests. So what makes tropical rainforests so unique is where they are found. Tropical rainforests are found along the equator. The equator is longitudinal lines that separate the world into two. So if you are a habitat near this area, you are typically going to have a lot of warm days, a lot of warm climate. So a lot of these tropical rainforests are going to be found in northern South America and Central Africa. Today we're going to be focusing on the rainforests found in South America, because that's where the sloths live. So, we got to talk about what makes up the rainforest. Now, looking at the rainforest, it looks like one big thing, but there are actually layers of the rainforest, like layers of a cake. The rainforest is made up of 4 layers. Starting from the bottom, we have the forest floor. The second layer is called the understory, and the third layer is called the canopy. With the very tip-top layer, the final 4th layer, is called the emergent layer. So we're going to dive into each one of these layers, but let's start from the bottom, the forest floor. The forest floor is very well named because it is the floor of the forest. So this is actually the darkest level of the rainforest because it's at the very bottom. All of those leaves will block the sun from getting down there. So this area has the least amount of sunlight. But that is perfect for creepy crawlies that live there. These creepy crawlies I'm talking about are decomposers. So decomposers are typically fungi, mushrooms, and bacteria and other insects that live on this layer. And what their main duty is to break down the organic material that builds up on the floor. So this material can be leaves that fell from the upper layers. It can be the fruit that fell down from the upper layers. And sometimes it can be critters that have passed away and are on the bottom floor. So that's where our decomposers come in. They'll scurry through, they'll break it down, munch it, waste, and then all of those nutrients will return to the soil. So we are going to meet an animal ambassador that you can find on the forest floor. Let's take a closer look. So here we have a friendly decomposer. This is a Madagascar hissing cockroach. So these guys are well named. They're found in Madagascar, They can hiss, and they are roach. But first, before we get into that, I want to talk about all these little friends you might see walking on him. So, this guy has some friends. These are little mites that live on the roach. Now, these mites don't bother him at all. These are what we call symbiotic relationships. So these little mites help the roach. They walk around, they clean him, and so the roach is quite happy with this. So this is a mutualistic relationship. The mites get to eat all the gross stuff on the roach, and the roach gets to stay clean. That's what symbiotic relationship means. So I keep referring to this as a male roach, and we can tell that just by these two little horns on top. The females have smaller little bumps. So these little guys are going to be walking onto the forest floor. They're going to be found in Madagascar, but they're going to be doing the same roles as you can find in a tropical rainforest. These guys like to eat old, decaying organic matter, like we talked about. So here at the zoo, they eat maybe not as much decaying organic matter as they would like. They get fresh potatoes, apples, pears, and monkey chow. And that is all we have for our decomposer. Moving on to the second layer, we're going to be looking at the understory. So this layer is right above the forest floor. So it is not as dark as the forest floor. This layer has little bits of sunshine, but it is mostly shielded from the hot sun and the severe weather from above. So it makes it perfect habitat for young saplings to grow. So in this layer, we're going to see some of the youngest of the trees and plants in the tropical rainforest. Not only that, this is when we start to see more diversity in animals. In the second layer, we're going to be seeing small mammals, we're going to be seeing small reptiles, and amphibians. The rainforests are known for having an incredible diversity of different types of amphibians, predominantly frogs. So taking a look here, I have a bunch of insane photos of different types of frogs you can find in the South American tropical rainforest. And here in the education department, we also have an amphibian that might want to say hi. Let's take a look at a frog you can find in a rainforest. So this guy right here, this is our tomato frog. This is Bisque. He is a tomato frog found in Madagascar. He is called a tomato frog because of just how he looks. He is that rusty orange color and he's large and plump. But this guy is pretty interesting. We just talked about frogs that like to climb in the understory. This is a different type of frog that likes to burrow in the forest floor. But he still shares a lot of the same characteristics we see in those understory frogs. First of all, he has semi-permeable skin, so this allows things to get in and out. He also technically can breathe through his skin. Because of their special skin, if the frog populations are large and healthy, it means that the forest that frog lives in is also nice and healthy. If the populations are dwindling and the frogs are showing negative signs, it means that that rainforest is being impacted in some way. So these guys are good indicator species, knowing that how the health of a rainforest is doing. And last but not least, these guys share the most in common with our understory frog friends is because of their diet. These guys are insectivores. They're carnivores that mainly eat insects. So as you might know, they all have those long, stretchy tongues that are perfect for pouncing on their unsuspecting insect friends and gobbling them up and eating them. So that was Bisque, our tomato frog. We're going to be moving on to our next layer. The next layer is the most iconic layer in the rainforest. This is the layer most people think about when they hear rainforest. It's the canopy. The canopy is filled with spots of sun. It also has many vines, branches, leaves, and in this level is where we start to see fruit. So because of that mixture of habitat and food, it's where you're going to find the most amount of animals in the rainforest. Scientists believe up to 90% of the animal species prefer to hang out in this level. What's even crazier is the animals that live in this level tend to travel in between all of the other levels. So typically in this level we can see mammals, we can see birds and reptiles, but it's too hot and there's too much sunlight for those cool amphibians. So let's take a look at an animal that likes to hang out in the canopy. So here we have an animal that you can find in the canopy. This is a white-bellied kite, and she is a small type of parrot. Her name is Monkey. So she is a small type of parrot, and you can tell because of two distinct traits on her. If you look at her feet, they look a little funny, don't they? This is because she is a parrot. All parrots have these kind of feet. And it has a funny saying, it's called zygodactyl feet. So that means that her second and third toe are on her front, and her first and fourth toe are on her back. The second part you can tell she's a parrot is because of her beak. Now you might notice that she has some leftovers on her beak too. She just ate a delicious salad. So in the wild, with her beak, she can crunch into nuts. She can rip into fruit and nibble all that stuff down so she can fit it in her tiny beak. Also, looking at Monkey, she has some weird colorations. Now for the canopy, these bright colors are perfect for camouflage. She can blend in with a lot of the same colors you find in the canopy. So here in Oklahoma, she wouldn't blend in very well because of all of the colors we have here. We don't have those bright colors in our trees. But in the canopy of the rainforest, remember, that is the first layer we start to see fruit. So she has those bright oranges and yellows that look like fruit. She has those beautiful emerald green wings, so she can blend in when she's flying around quite well. That is Monkey, our white-bellied kite. Let's move on to our next layer. Now we are at our final layer. The very tip-top layer is the emergent layer. This layer, because it's the top, obviously has the most amount of sunlight. It is also home to the sturdiest and tallest of all the trees in the rainforest. These trees are so sturdy that the emergent layer can actually hold large primates and large animals, like the harpy eagle, with ease. What's really cool about this large area too is just how tall it can be. This layer can be up to 250 feet tall. That is almost as tall as the Statue of Liberty. So we just went through all 4 layers of the rainforest. Starting from the bottom, we had the forest floor. The second layer was the understory. The third layer was the canopy, and we just finished talking about the last layer, the emergent layer. So now that we know what makes up a rainforest, how about we check out an animal that lives in the emergent layer? So here we have some animal ambassadors that you can find in our emergent layer. Here we have 2 different types of macaws. The one on the left that is blue and yellow, she is a blue and gold macaw, while the one on the right, the bright red one, is, funny enough, a green-winged macaw. So these 2 are going to be found in the emergent layer and in the canopy. And that is because they are going between those layers to search for food. So you can see Kira right here has a little treat. She's eating a Brazil nut. Now these nuts are typically really hard to get into. So right here I have one. I wouldn't be able to squish this open unless I have a special tool. Luckily, these girls, their beaks are their special tools. They can break into hard nuts and peel away fruit to get to the meat inside. So we just saw a closer look at these 2 animal ambassadors, which you can find in the emergent layer of the rainforest. Now, let's move on.
Hey everyone, I'm Katie, and I'm going to show you how to do a really fun craft from an animal that lives in the rainforest. We're going to make a toucan, and we're going to make a stained glass window that you can put up, and the light will shine through, and it will look just like a real stained glass window. Now this is a really easy craft project to do because it's made with simple supplies that you could find around your house. We are going to use a background piece of paper. Okay, so this is a full sheet of construction paper. I chose green. You can choose whatever color you want. I also have a piece of black. This is going to become the head of the toucan. And I have a piece of white just for scrap. So if you just have little scraps laying around, you can use that too. Now in addition to the construction paper, we will need colored tissue paper. I have 3 different colors here. If you just have one color, that's fine, no big deal. You can use what you want. Or if you just have white at your house, you can actually color your tissue paper with marker and then use that in the same way that we're using our colored tissue paper. In addition to those supplies, we need a bit of string, doesn't matter what kind of string, some glue, scissors, and a pencil. Okay, let's get started. So what we're going to do first is we're actually going to make strips of our tissue paper, and I've done that here. So I've just cut strips of tissue paper. Now you won't need this many, but it never hurts to have a little bit of extra. We're going to just set that to the side for now. And I'm going to take my piece of paper. And what we're going to do is we're going to draw a large beak on our paper. Okay, and kind of the shape of a toucan. Now we have to cut it out. Now it's important that we don't cut the edge of the construction paper. So what we're going to do is just bend the paper a little bit, give it a little fold, and then we can get our scissors in there to cut. Now if you do happen to cut through the edge of the paper, don't worry. You can always just use a little piece of tape to tape it back together. Next, we want to take our black sheet of paper and we're going to cut a half circle from the edge of the paper. So we want the straight edge to be part of the circle. Like so. Okay, doesn't have to be perfect, just can be the shape that you like it. And we're going to glue this right to the side of our toucan, just like that. Like so. Okay, then we're going to flip the paper over entirely. So the head side should be towards the table, and then we're going to use those strips of tissue paper and we're going to put strips all along the hole and cover the whole entire thing up. So put glue at the top and the bottom. And then we just lay our tissue paper right on top, like so, and we clip it off at the bottom. And you can do this in whatever order you want. If you just have one color, that's fine. Just go across it with one color. If you have multiple colors, you can create a pattern, or you could just do random colors if you'd like. This is your project, so however you want to do it is just fine. It doesn't matter if the back looks a little bit messy, because you're not going to see the back. The back is going to be the back. So you don't need to worry about it looking messy. Once we've made it all the way across with our tissue paper, it should look like this. Okay, next we're going to work on an eye for our toucan. So you're going to flip it back to the right side. And I'm going to cut a circle for the eye. Okay, now I'm going to try it on my thing. Now I've made that way too big, so I'm going to cut it down a little bit in size. There, that's better. Once you like the size, you just glue it on. And then I'm going to take another little piece of the black to make the pupil, or the black part of your eye. And next, all we have to do is add the string. So I'm going to flip it back over to the back. Glue on one side. Lay my string down. Some glue on top too. Glue on this side. Glue it down. Okay. And there you have it. We do have to wait until it dries. There you go. There's your nice toucan craft to represent the rainforest. Bye!
So we just went through the structure of the rainforest. We learned what animals live in what levels, and we got to meet some of those animals. But where do the sloths fit in? What layer are we going to find the sloths? Well, fun fact, they can be in any layer. This species is known for climbing all the way to the top of the emergent layer, all the way down to the forest floor. And we're going to touch on that a little bit later. But for now, I want to talk about the different types of sloths. Did you know there are 6 species of sloths? And within those 6 species, there are 2 types. There are the 2-toed sloth and the 3-toed sloth. But it might be a little confusing. So to help demonstrate, I have a biofact. Now this is an animal replica or an animal part to help educate and use it for education. So right here I have a sloth pelt. This is the pelt of a 2-toed sloth. But the confusing part, the toes. Let's take a look at the hind legs of a 2-toed sloth. Looking at the hind leg, you might be noticing something. If we count all those toes, there's more than there should be. 1, 2, 3. How is this a 2-toed sloth with 3 toes? That is because they're poorly named. They should actually be called 2-fingered because their 2 claws are on their front arm. But for now, we're just going to call them 2-toed sloths. So you can see 1 and 2. So this is one of the type of a 2-toed sloth. There are 2 types of 2-toed sloth. There's 2 species. There is the Hoffman sloth. Now this sloth is the one I have in front of me. It has long, light-colored hair. The second type of 2-toed sloth is the Linus's 2-toed sloth. So this sloth is known for having darker coloring and shorter hair. Now for the 3-toed sloths, there are way more. We have 4 different types of 3-toed sloths. The first one is the brown-throated sloth. This sloth is very well named because it has a brown throat. The second 3-toed sloth is the pale-throated sloth. Again, well named, they have a pale throat. The third 3-toed sloth is the maned sloth. This sloth is known for its long, luxurious dark hair. It has the longest hair out of any sloth species. And last but not least, the pygmy 3-toed sloth. Now this sloth is actually interesting because of where it lives. This sloth tends to live in Central America on the west coast. These sloths are actually found in the mangrove trees. And they are identified with bright white patches on their back and very distinct eye marks. Because of where they live, they are critically endangered. Mangrove trees are harder to find, and so their habitat is harder to get to. It's fragmented, so the habitats no longer connect. And because of that, they are critically endangered. So we just talked about all the crazy species of sloths we can find in the tropical rainforest. What role do sloths play? Sloths play a critical role in the rainforest, and it's all thanks to their slow movement. Sloths move so slow because they have a very low metabolism. So they live the slow life, and they slowly walk around all day. So they have limited movement, but they are able to touch all layers of the rainforest. So how do they do that? It's because of their fur and because they're slow. Since sloths are so slow, algae, moss, mold, all that fun, gross green stuff tends to grow on the back of sloth's fur. Now, their fur ends up being a habitat for other critters. So the sloths will slowly go through all the layers of the rainforest with an immense amount of bugs and bacteria on their back. Some scientists believe that there are more than 86 different species of insects that live on the back of a sloth. Now, one of those insects is more important than the others. It is because it has a symbiotic relationship with sloths. So sloths, just like our roaches from earlier, they have hitchhikers that they don't mind. So the sloths have a symbiotic relationship with the sloth moth, a well-named moth, because the only place this moth lives is on the back of a sloth. Their whole world is based on the sloth's fur and where the sloth goes. So these guys have a very interesting habit. They typically only visit the forest floor once every week or every other week. And it has to do with the bathroom. Sloths, specifically three-toed sloth, have a weird behavior where they will descend the trees that they're on, going through all layers, sometimes starting all the way up in the emergent layer, taking the long journey to go to the forest floor just to poop. Why do they do that? Scientists still actually don't know. But they do know that the moths need this process in order to continue their life cycle. So once the sloth gets all the way down to the base of the tree, it will do what I like to call the sloth poop dance. So you have your three claws, you're holding the tree, and because you're a three-toed sloth, you actually have a little stumpy tail. So with your tail, you will start to wiggle your butt, and you will create a little tiny hole. And then you're gonna poop, and then you're gonna climb back up the tree. So that's the sloth poop dance. During the sloth poop dance, the moths are going to leave the back of the sloth and lay their eggs on the sloth poop. They look at that poop and they think it's the best nursery. So they lay their eggs there and then they fly back to the sloth fur. So those eggs live on the poop, they hatch, the little larvae roam around the waist, and they grow big and strong and metamorphosize into moths. So there's a large amount of moths flying away from the sloth poop, and they fly all throughout the layers to try to find another sloth host, another place where they could live on the back of a sloth and hopefully have their eggs one day. So thanks to the sloth provides a habitat for these moths to live on, and the moths will lay their eggs and fly off to be a snack for other critters. So we are reaching the end of our video. Do you remember everything we talked about? In the very beginning, we talked about the two different types of rainforest. Do you remember them? We had the temperate and the tropical rainforest. After that, we talked about the 4 layers in the rainforest, the tropical rainforest. Do you remember them all? We had the forest floor, then we had the understory, we had the canopy, and last but not least, the emergent layer. After that, we talked about the 2 types of sloths. Do you remember them? We had the 2-toed and the 3-toed. And together, we have 6 species of sloths. And last but not least, the thing we just talked about, the crazy symbiotic relationship the sloth and the sloth moth have to help the rainforest. I hope you all enjoyed this sloth rainforest video. I sure had a blast. And on behalf of everyone here at the Tulsa Zoo, have a wonderful day.